welcome to Best Laid Plans. This is your host, Sarah Hart-Unger, and this is the podcast where we talk all things planning and planning adjacent. Today, we're going to try something different. I am going to include a paper planner review in this episode. That's not the something different, but I am going to do a little task management email cleanout demo. This is not something I've tried before, but I get a lot of questions about task capture, and I talk about airtight task management in my book. So I thought, it would be interesting to time myself clearing out my various inboxes and talking to you guys kind of in real time about where various tasks went within my system. So I am going to go ahead and kind of do this piecewise. My editors are going to have a little bit more of a job than they usually do with this podcast because we're going to be putting tracks together while I take breaks and do some of these things. But I will report back with the amounts of time that everything takes, and maybe it'll give you a little bit of inspo for your own inbox sorting as well, and ideas for making sure that all those tasks coming at you get captured somewhere trusted. So the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with my Gmail inbox. We're not going to do all of my inboxes today, but we're going to do a few of them. And my Gmail inbox is my most, cumbersome. The one where I get all the stuff for the podcast. You guys email me questions. The kids' school stuff comes in there. Random bills to pay and things like that come in there. And I do tend to clean it out every week or two. When it gets to be more than 2 weeks, it is a little bit of a disaster. So I really try to stick to every week or two. And I'm actually in a pretty good place right now because real time here, let's check my inbox. We have exactly 135 messages in my primary folder. We have, a million in my 570 in my promotions folder. I'll talk about how I deal with that in a minute. I have a social folder with stuff I basically don't look at that it looks like 39. And then my updates folder, apparently I have 2 in there. I don't really read that either. So the first step to my email triage is that I will go through and do a brief, basically I go to the end of my emails and I click on select all. And this is in my primary inbox. And I get rid of anything that's just like clearly not actionable. Do I take the time to unsubscribe from things? Honestly, not most of the time. I probably should make it for like once a month. My email clean out includes an unsubscribing blitz. Maybe that'll be a 2026 goal, but I don't know. I don't get too much of a volume where it bothers me that much. And usually this step is pretty quick. So I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to report what my first pass triage got me down to and exactly how long it took. And I'll talk about kind of what I cleared out of there in that very first pass. All right, well, I will be back. We'll call this time 0 and we'll see how many minutes this takes. All right, I am back. And it is 7 minutes later than it was when I got on the microphone to start this episode. And my email inbox is now down to 39. I also archived everything in my promotions folder, and I archived everything in social and updates with kind of a cursory glance because I can browse through that when I feel like it. But honestly, I really don't think I've ever missed anything important by going to those folders. And I feel confident just going ahead and archiving those. So what did I get rid of in my inbox to get down from the mid 130s to 39? Lots of just like little notifications about things, but I don't know, I guess I should have paid more attention to what I was archiving. Some of them were just things that have already passed, like they're podcast scripts that I've already used, or an invite that I don't need the electronic reminder of it in my inbox because it's in my planner, like things that I just knew that I didn't need and didn't have a task embedded in them. I didn't want to read them. Maybe a couple of them were newsletters that I was just like, I'm just going to keep getting newsletters and I'm not going to read that one this week. I actually left a few newsletters in there that I wanted to at least scan through. But yeah, none of those things had like super actionable items. They didn't require responses. I mean, admittedly, there are things that at this point in my career, I guess I would say, that I just don't respond to. That is not like when I get individual questions from listeners, I do respond to all of those. Not necessarily like that day. I'm not always the fastest, but when someone's like, I want a planner rec, you're going to get an email from me. But if it's like clearly someone that's just blanketing the podcast world with, hey, I love your podcast and we have this guest for you, but it's like clearly generic. I didn't ask for them to solicit me. So either I'll write a one-liner or sometimes I just delete. So things in my inbox that are just really not actionable and or not solicited, just go. So again, that's how we got from 130 some messages to 39 in just 7 minutes. I will also say, I thought I cleaned out my inbox a week ago, but I think it was actually less than that. I feel like a week's worth of accumulated emails in my Gmail is around 300-ish in my primary box, and I only had 100 and some. So I think this was actually less than a week. I believe I cleaned things out, I think on Wednesday, and it's Monday today as I'm recording this. So that just gives you an idea. All right, so in the next segment, I am going to go ahead and start processing items one by one. I am not going to walk you through every one of these 39 items and where I process them. I think that would get real old real fast, but I'm going to go ahead and do it and set a timer and then kind of give you some examples of what happened to all of these emails in my inbox that I decided are actionable. And by the way, the approach that I go through is a little bit controversial because I know some people really don't like the task switching of messages that are mixed up. But I find that once I've gotten things down to a reasonable number and I know all of these things are somewhat actionable, as long as I have my planner with me, the context switching isn't so great. I'm not like answering clinical messages. It's just like a mix of school stuff and podcast stuff and work stuff and personal stuff. And if I were to like go through and only do podcast stuff and then go through and only do home stuff, I just feel like I would like gloss over things that I didn't feel like doing it. And then I'd be like looking at those items many, many times because, oh, I don't feel like doing it this round. I'll do it the next round. No. I'm just going to go straight through. I'm only going to touch each thing once and I'm going to accept the minor amounts of context switching that are going to happen as I do this. So I'm going to report back. I'll let you know how many minutes it took. And maybe I'll give you 10 examples of items that I processed. And then we'll talk about a couple of other inboxes. And then we'll get to our fun planner review. So if you are waiting to hear about the Hemlock Oak weekly, daily, monthly option that just came out, that is coming. So stay tuned. All right, I am back and my inbox is now at 0. I calculated the time I spent. And full disclosure, this was interrupted. So I actually did a podcast interview in the middle of this, so I stopped the clock. But the total amount of time after that initial 7-minute cleanup that was spent processing from 39 emails to 0 was 11 minutes plus 22 minutes. It was 33 minutes total. Okay, so 33 plus 7. So that is 40 minutes processing my email inbox from about 130 to 0. And that included, well, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples, but included putting things into my planning system so I'll see them at the right time. It included responding to some emails. It included putting things in my calendar. And I feel like all of the kind of open loops and uncertainty that were in there are now taken care of. Now, is that my only inbox? So am I really at inbox 0? It is not. And I'll talk about those other inboxes in a moment. But I feel pretty good about that amount of time. Actually, it was honestly a lot less than I thought. I do feel like some weeks, again, I don't think this was a full week. I think this was about half a week. And I also feel like some weeks I end up with more personal emails to respond to. That I had a few people like asking for planner matchups and things like that, but I didn't have a ton. And those tend to take the most of my time since I really want to think and give them a good response. Or if they want a planner matchmaking, I want to look at various planners and really do my best to try to find something that will help them. So I didn't have a ton of that in this inbox. And so I think that's why it didn't take too long, but there was still a lot of things processed. So we're going to take a quick break and then I'm going to give you a bunch of examples. Now, this actually took longer than it would have because I stopped to take notes and I didn't stop the clock for this on a lot of this processing that I did. So actually, that's interesting. It would have been less than 40 minutes if I hadn't been monitoring what I was doing. I will say one thing that helps is I did not, other than the breaks that I took purposefully, there was no distraction. Like I really was on a mission to deal with each thing in here and not get sidetracked and then go to the next thing and clear things as fast as I could, in part because, hey, I was measuring the time and I wanted to see how long it takes, but also because when I do get in that zone of really wanting to clear things out, I do tend to zero in like that. And I think it does help. So we're going to take a quick break and then I'm going to give you examples of lots of the items I processed and where those things went. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Prep Dish. Fall and the school year is in full swing now, and at our house, that means all the sports and activities are up and running. You know what I don't love spending much time thinking about during this busy season? dinner. For years, I have let Prep Dish do most of that thinking for me, and I've truly find it a mental load lightener. Here's how it works. Every Friday, I receive a new weekly meal plan straight to my inbox. That includes an ingredient list, a prep plan, and all the recipes needed for the week. I look at our calendar, make any adjustments if our schedules call for it, and voila! Our dinner plans for the next week are set. Prep Dish now even has integration with Instacart to help you seamlessly build your shopping list. So if you shop that way, that just makes things even easier for you. The founder, Allison, is offering listeners a free 2-week trial to check it out. So this is a great way to see if her plans will work for you. Check out prepdish.com/plans for this amazing deal. Again, that's prepdish.com/plans for your first 2 weeks free. If you try it, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Today's episode is brought to you with support from Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no confusion. That's why you should say yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 per month. With Mint Mobile, you're getting the same services as any other provider, but at a fraction of the cost. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. If you're not ready to make the switch yourself, Mint Mobile can be a great option for teens or tweens getting their first device. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/BLP. That's mintmobile.com/BLP. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Today's episode is sponsored in part by Organize 365. As we approach the close of another year, I want to take a moment to honor you, the leader of your household, the cornerstone of your family, the multitasker, the caregiver, the friend, the professional, and the dreamer. You wear countless hats, and with every role you carry an invisible load. These tasks, decisions, and emotional labor sometimes even go by unseen by you, but they are never unfelt. This is the work that powers our lives. It's the unseen effort that keeps everything running, often at the cost of our own peace of mind or goals. But what if this invisible work didn't have to stay invisible? What if you could bring it to light, streamline it, and reclaim the energy it takes? The Sunday Basket is a natural partner for your weekly planning routine. The Sunday Basket contains and corrals all your ideas, paper notes, to-do lists, and mail safely until you are ready for your weekly planning time. Let this be the year you free your mind, lighten your load, and make your goals a reality. Together, let's make the invisible work visible. Visit organize365.com/SundayBasket to buy the Sunday Basket today. That's organize365.com/SundayBasket. All right, I am back and I scrawled. I don't normally scrawl, you guys. I have neat handwriting. I try really hard, but I didn't want to break my flow too much. So I wrote as fast as I possibly could. If I could have used like my right hand, I would have while I was dealing with, no, you can't write with one hand than the other hand. But anyway, I jotted down a bunch of the things I did with these tasks, since I often get a lot of questions about processing tasks, especially I think because I use largely analog, well, not all analog as you'll hear methods, but I don't use like a fancy like task manager. It's not like I'm not even using Trello or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those things. I just have kind of a combination paper and Apple Notes system, as you are about to hear. But here we go. All right. So I had a bunch of newsletters in there, which I had not deleted on the first pass because I really wanted to skim through them. So I did. None of them took me that much time. I didn't do like deep, slow reading or take notes or anything like that, but I felt like I got what I needed to out of each of the newsletters. Ironically, one of them was Cal Newport's, and it was called something like, Why Can't AI Manage My Email? So I read that one with interest, actually. I kind of think I might want to try the email client that he tried, although he mentions that he tried it on an inbox that was very low stakes. And I don't feel like my Gmail inbox is that low stakes because I feel like I could miss an important opportunity or question or something like that. I really don't know that I want to miss something like that. But anyway, super interesting. And one of the newsletters I came across and skimmed. So I dealt with maybe 5 newsletters. I came upon an email that had an order tracker for a dress I ordered that I'm hoping to get by this weekend. And it's not urgent, but I ended up signing up for the tracking notifications. So I'll be able to get messaged as it's moving along in its path. So I went ahead and archived that once I got the notification set up. I had accumulated a couple of Best Laid Plans at Home signups. So thank you so much for those of you who registered recently. And I sent welcome emails to each of those. I use a template, but I personalize them a little bit, especially if I know the person and just want to make sure that I kind of touch each person that signed up by sending that email. So I did that. Let's see, what does this say? It's hard to read. That's how fast I was writing, you guys. I got a forward from a friend about something that was interesting, and I read it and I wrote back. That won't require, it's not like a back and forth thing. She's not going to write back to me about that, but it's just something interesting and cool. And so I wrote her back. I had an email from the school that one of my kids lost their ID card and that I would be charged. And I wrote back, thanks. I already talked to the kids, so, wasn't much too actionable there. I got a dental appointment reminder and I put that into my planner on the day. Well, I didn't put it in. It was already in because as I scheduled it, I'd put it in, but I didn't delete the email on first pass because I just wanted to make sure that I had the appointment in my planner, and I did, so I could move on from that. I got an invoice for utilities, and since I use You Need a Budget when I get that kind of a thing, I just put it into YNAB immediately, so I know the amount that will be deducted. I got some podcast tracks from Laura for Best of Both Worlds. I use Apple Notes to kind of corral all of my podcast notes, recordings, ad stuff, etc., my ad calendar, everything there. So I just put that into notes for the corresponding episode. I responded to a guest who we are getting on Best of Both Worlds. It was a quick kind of one-liner because we're setting up the date. I got a reminder for the Bayshore Marathon registration that I had deferred from a year ago. Kind of funny. I definitely am not going to be running that marathon, but I found out that I can transfer my bib so I can actually claim it and give it to someone. So I'm going to do that good deed and post it on my blog. So I made a little reminder on my calendar for tomorrow to go ahead and post on my blog to see if anybody wants to run the Bayshore Marathon. So was able to archive that. I got a notification about the gymnastics party that also went to the Stack Team app, which the gym uses. So kind of interesting that they're like pinging two places at once, but I put that into my calendar. I got an email for a pajama sale. My kids want these special pajamas and they're going to go on sale tomorrow at noon. So I set an alarm for that on my phone. I got a copy of my daughter's PSAT score and I archived that in Apple Notes. I got a credit card bill that I just paid using the app on my phone. And I got a bunch of ad copy with it, which I captured in Apple Notes. So pretty much I'm at 0 and everything was either a response, a collect this information in Apple Notes kind of a situation, or a put in my planner on a certain day, or actually there weren't many of these that like went on a week. But one thing I do commonly do that I talk about is I'll just assign it to a future week for me to deal with if I know I have a really busy week and it's not an urgent thing. So yeah, I mean, there were a few more things in there, but I think you have the general idea. And I also don't think I did anything like earth shattering. Obviously, there are careers. You're probably sitting here like, oh my gosh, like 130 emails. I get that in an hour. And I know that there are jobs where that's true. I obviously also have to deal with a very active inbox at my clinical job. That's a little bit different. I have things kind of coming at me all the time. And I have had an administrative role before where I got tons of emails for that as well. But this is just personal stuff and business stuff. And I think especially with this kind of stuff, people assume it's just going to like fit in the cracks, but it really can accumulate to the point of becoming stressful. And I do think that all the things I captured will enable me to put out future fires. They're fires I won't have. Like, I was able to notice, we have to do an ad for this and it's due this date and I can combine it with my ad recording session for Best Laid Plans. So, hey, that's easy and it won't take up any extra time. Or noting when the gymnastics party is so I can put it into my planner that we have to buy some snacks for that party. Like things like that will otherwise accumulate and can become very stressful, but adequately captured into my task management system, I feel really good. Like I know where everything is and what I have on my plate. So I hope that was interesting. I mean, maybe it was really boring to some people. And again, this is a little bit different than the work. It's the same and it's different. I think work email that comes at high volumes is just this on a more macro scale. Like you're, for a half a day's worth of work, if you're getting hundreds of emails, you're going to have to spend an hour getting through them. I do maintain that my archiving system isn't any like slower than someone who's skimming and triaging. And I think in many ways it's faster because I really only see everything once, or I do my first pass and then I touch it once after that, and then it's captured and I can move on. I also absolutely agree with Cal Newport that like one of our goals should be to reduce the amount of email that we have coming at us. So when something does become a back and forth conversation, to really work hard to be like, let's set up a meeting about this and get that meeting on your calendar, because responding to 10 different emails about something is going to be more time consuming than it would be to just have a face-to-face meeting, which is really what that scenario requires. So I'll be interested in feedback. Again, I know the most common one's going to be like, that is no email. So of course it was quick. How do I deal with this at scale? But if one of your jobs is to deal with lots of email, then you in reality have to have time to deal with that email, unless you're able to have an assistant do it, or you're able to use one of the AI tools that makes things quicker. And I do think the more reliable those things get, the more some of us can head in that direction. But I don't know, I feel like 40 minutes was actually pretty good for a half week worth of emails of a busy mom who has a business and 3 kids and another job, which also has stuff in the inbox. But I'm not tackling that until I go to work tomorrow, because thankfully everything there is non-urgent and can wait till I'm in that clinical space to deal with it. So what other inboxes do I deal with, and how do I process them? I have my WhatsApp threads, and of which there are many, and I tend to deal with those like kind of towards the end of each day. I could pause this. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it. All right. One more pausing, and I'll let you know how long it took to clear out my text messages and WhatsApp threads and any other apps on my phone with notifications that I've left unread to deal with. So yeah, I'll be right back, and then we will talk about the Hemlock and Oak planner. I promise we will get to that. All right, I am back. That only took 7 minutes. So during that time, I went to the gymnastics app, I went to WhatsApp, I went to my text, and I went ahead and cleared various things out. So examples of some things that they were on red, and I left I put them onto red from unread, were some news messages in my Best Laid Plans live chat, which was fun. I responded to one of them. I looked at some cute pictures from school that had the kids decorating a turkey. I browsed through some questions about a field trip my daughter's taking. I got an RSVP from a birthday party. And then in my text messages, and by the way, messages were like coming in as I was doing this, because that's how our inputs are these days. They never really stop. But I went ahead and responded to a couple of text messages. I'm trying to see to my sister-in-law about setting up our Hanukkah party. And then my daughter set up a group chat with her friends because she's going on a field trip. So I responded to that. And I also put that group thread on hide alerts. I use hide alerts for many, many text chains that are active where I don't need the information synchronously. And it's fine for me to check in when I look at my phone versus it pinging my watch all the time. And this definitely cuts down on interruptions when I need to focus. I don't even find that I usually have to use do not disturb mode because so many of my contacts are on hide alerts. There's just a few privileged people that are not. Yeah, but that didn't take very long at all. A couple things did end up in my planner, such as I put a note that I saw a notification on WhatsApp that my daughter is going to have to fill out a questionnaire for school. So I put a checkbox to bring that to school tomorrow because otherwise I would probably forget. And yeah, I think that was actually it in terms of like what was actionable and made it to my planner. And I clear that out probably a couple times a day. And then certainly by the end of each day, I make sure all my text messages are either read or responded to or just dealt with in some fashion. So those are the bulk of my digital inboxes. Again, don't get me started on my epic electronic medical record inbox. You can listen to my efficiency tips for healthcare providers. I clear that out every single clinical day that I work. I aim to get it to 0 because I don't want to leave patients hanging with results. And I'm of the philosophy that, listen, I'm going to have to do the work eventually. Like, why not do it in a timely manner, like when it comes in versus letting things linger? So I do clear that out every clinical day, but I generally don't log in or touch it on my non-clinical days. And then I also have my Outlook mail, which I clear out on clinical days. That's for my clinical job. And then my actual physical paper mail, which I either put kind of in a basket next to my desk, my Sunday basket that I deal with weekly, or I deal with it right then and there if it's something actionable. And I definitely recycle stuff every single day that I don't want to keep piles of mail throughout the week. So that is how I process my inboxes. I processed my inbox live on a podcast. So this is either the most exciting if you're a total productivity nerd like me and you were like, ooh, I just want to hear how someone else does this, or it was the most boring episode I've ever had. I hope it's more the former than the latter. And I'm going to take a minute to do a quick walkthrough, as promised, the new Hemlock and Oak planner that is daily, monthly, weekly, that is new for this year. And I think they have positioned this in the marketplace as kind of a Hobonichi competitor. I ordered it with interest. I didn't think I was actually going to use this instead of Hobonichi. I've been using that for very many years. But I definitely agree there should be more planners with all-in-one on the market. So I was really excited that they came up with this. And it has a lot of positives and a couple of drawbacks, in my opinion, although I'm sure this is the perfect planner for somebody. So I'm going to do a little bit of a walkthrough. The first drawback is, I will say, it is expensive. I paid over $100 for this planner. It's all made in Canada. It's beautifully made. I can imagine they'll probably have sales, closer to the new year, but I know it was an in-demand product, but it is quite pricey. It's also large. So it's A5 size. So it's not that actually, is it A5? No, it is a tiny bit wider than A5. Actually, it goes out about a 1.5 centimeters from my Hobonichi when I lay it out. And therefore, because of that, it wouldn't fit into Hobonichi covers. And also, it's a sizable book. It's very thick. They're using 70 GSM paper, which as compared to, I think, the 52, it's switched a couple times. I think it's 52 GSM in the Hobonichi right now. So the paper's thin, but not as thin as Hobonichi paper. And we're going to talk about the paper in a minute, but it's definitely a significantly fatter, thicker book than the Hobonichi Cousin, which contains the entire year. And I actually prefer to use the one that's even smaller called the Avec, that's just half the year. So for me, this is just too big of a volume. And I struggle with when I open it, like, if you're in the beginning or the end of the book, it's just sort of like it's just such a high stack to write on that can be a little bit problematic for me, but not for everyone. It's a beautiful cover. You can kind of hear that. It's got like a cloth paper feel. I do think if you were going to use this for the entire year, you'd want to put some kind of overcover on it. I don't remember if Hemlock and Oak actually sells those at the moment, but I can imagine getting some kind of leather cover. You just have to be very careful about the measurements of this planner. And then we're going to do a walk through the sections. So this planner, unlike Hobonichi, has a lot of structured goal setting, reflection, etc. I prefer to have my goal setting stuff in separate notebooks. Like I have my own workbooks that I've created, and I really do use those. So I don't need the goal setting stuff to be part of my planner, but other people love having everything in one place. And I think are really going to love this content of this all-in-one situation. So we have a table of contents so that you don't get lost in this big planner. Then we have self-reflection pages. We have a couple of those, which give you space to write, what's going well. They make a heavy use of dot grid, which I love. It makes it easier to write in a nice straight manner. And the grid squares are a little bit bigger than the Hobonichi. So if you feel a little bit cramped writing on those squares that may not be designed for the characters that make up like the English language, they're more designed for writing in Japanese. For me, it's fine because I write really small, but if you write bigger, you might prefer this. So we've got self-reflection pages. We have a little exercise in identifying values. And then we have some goal-setting pages. It looks like there is space for 1, 2, and 3 big goals to write some details about that. Then there are pages specifically for habit cultivation. So this is interesting. They're asking you to kind of take your habit planning away from your goal planning. I do agree. Sometimes they should be addressed differently. So I like that. So 3 pages of habit cultivation. We have a daily framework page to talk about like daily routines and obstacles that come up. A page of anything important, like 1 page for reference. That's kind of cool. And then there are calendars that show the year at a glance for both 2026 and 2027. So that could be really cool for someone to track days of paid leave taken off, vacations, call weeks, things like that. And I do think it's really helpful to have that 2027 available right then and there so you can plan that far ahead. This is followed by a really cute spread with the months that are small on the left and then dot grid space next to each month. So you could really write out all the big things. I would probably use this to be like, what are the fun things for each month? And I would list them out here. It would be a beautiful space for that. And then we have like a vertical year, kind of like they have in the Hobonichi, where you have each month. So there are 3 columns on each page, 4 pages, January, February, March on the left, April, May, June on the right, and then the same spread for the next 6 months. And then the lines are numbered from 1 to 31. And then there are like 12 boxes for every single day. So you could habit track here. You could list something you're grateful for here. You could do anything that you wanted to have a little small daily slot that you could see at a glance. I use a similar spread in the Hobonichi to track my family's health and also my periods on that as well. I mean, they go with health as well, right? So this could be used as a health tracker, I think, really well as in addition. Then we have a page that lists holidays. They do list Canadian holidays first and then American holidays, which is fair. Hemlock Oak is a Canadian company. Then we have some planning pages. First begins our January overview, and each month has an overview page like this before the planning begins, and you can set some goals, set some intentions. I love the monthly spread. It's just really, really pretty because the month is dot grid, makes it really easy to write on. It's, as I said, a little wider than a Hobonichi, so this just really feels like a very spacious monthly spread, a great place to capture monthly goals. And then we get into the meat of the planner, the weekly pages. They are the vertical hourly layout that we see also in the Hobonichi. The hours listed, however, are a bit more limited. They start at 6 a.m., they go to 10 p.m., and then there's blank space along the bottom. So I do think this is an incredibly functional layout. You have a little mini month to the left. You have an area to put focus, intentions, or to-dos, but it's subtle enough that I feel like you could rename that as anything you wanted and really have a lot of tasks listed along the left-hand side. And the fact that they end at 10 p.m. but then have a good number of blank lines beneath that mean it would be really easy to do what I do in my Hobonichi and track things like your kids' activities or your exercise or what's for dinner. There is space on the page to do that. So this is a nested planner, meaning not like nested goals, but it's not, Hobonichi has all of the months and then all of the weeks and then all of the daily pages. This one's not like that. We have all of the weekly pages for the month of January, that's after the monthly calendar. And then we have all of the daily pages for the month of January. And then you kind of get into your whole February section where everything repeats. So that's kind of interesting. We have our month spread, our week spread for January, then each January day, followed by everything in February, and so on. The daily pages, I really do like this layout as well. There is space for your schedule along the left with the hours listed from 5 a.m. until midnight. So a pretty nice long day. You have a column that says today, and then there are check boxes, but I think you could also totally ignore the check boxes and use this to write lists, to journal, to really do whatever you want. The pages really do feel nice and expansive, and there's a space for focus and intentions up top, but I feel like you could use that for whatever you wanted. If you wanted to put a quote or write the number of steps that you do or your New York Times Games results or, whatever kind of suits your fancy. So that is the meat of the planner. It goes all the way through to December. I am flipping through as we speak. And then at the end, and we have my marked up page, which we'll get to in a second. You have your year-end review, which is a couple of pages, a page that says looking ahead, and then like 5 or so blank pages, followed by a quote. And then that is the end of the planner. Now, I tried it out. I'm sure you want to know, how does this paper compare to Hobonichi paper? How did your pens do? And I have to say the paper is very nice. For me, I prefer a paper with a little bit more tooth. This paper, if it has a downside at all, and I'm not sure it does, but if you do not like super smooth paper, you will not love this paper because it is super smooth paper. Okay, all that said, I wrote some complaint with my pen. I said something like, this feels so slippery, like I don't have control, but I'm looking at what I wrote and it's quite neat. Like I obviously had enough control. So it's more slippery than Hobonichi paper. It's definitely more slippery than, say, Stalogy paper, which is also quite thin, but it is not like unusably slippery. It's just overall a little bit smoother. It is very opaque compared to Hobonichi. So there is definitely less bleed through compared to Hobonichi. If Hobonichi frustrates you because you turn the page and you see what's on the back, you still do to some extent with this, but absolutely less than in the Hobonichi, in my opinion. And I tried it with a bunch of gel pens. I tried it with mild liners. And yeah, the amount of ghosting is definitely significantly less than in the Hobonichi. The mild liners don't come across really like at all. And even the pen, it's like very vague. The only pen that really came through significantly, and I don't mean bleeding, just in a little bit of ghosting, was a Pentel Sign pen, which is pretty inky. It is a little smudge prone, but honestly not terribly. So, I mean, the ink does sit on top a little bit. And one thing I cannot comment on is how fountain pen friendly it is, because I have ordered some fountain pens. I'm very excited to give those a try, but I have not actually received my package yet from Jet Pens. And speaking of package, I ordered this from Canada and of course thought, oh my gosh, is this going to be Hobonichi 2.0? And it's, I'm going to get a toxic forms report a month in and it's going to circle back between multiple cities. But no, this did not take too long to get to me. Once it shipped, I think it took about a week. And it did not get stuck in customs or anything like that. I only ordered the planner, no accessories. I do believe my Hobonichi package got stuck because I ordered pens and maybe there are like more substances in pens that have to be vetted and stuff like that. But yeah, the shipping was not too much of a problem. And I didn't have any surprise fees or anything I had to pay. The amount I paid was on the website, and that's what, hit my credit card and nothing beyond that. So I think this is a really interesting planner. I think it's great for somebody that doesn't mind a big book. Because again, this is a big, thick book. I will take pictures of it. I mean, man, if I was on video, that would be good because you could actually see this. I got to start. 2026. There'll be some more video. Okay. It's coming. But it's a pretty thick book. But if it's going to sit on your desk, that may not matter for some people. And the layouts are very pretty. Again, the dot grid is just incredibly functional. It is written in fairly light print. So I know we've talked about vision accessibility issues. If that's a problem for you, to see things that are like in more of a grayscale than a dark black, this might not be the planner for you. But if that is your aesthetic and you love that, then you're going to love how this looks. Again, I think all the layouts are great. It has a good number of goal setting pages. And it is definitely an all-in-one. You could use this really as your main planner. There is so much data that could fit in this planner that could serve you throughout the year. So I encourage you to check it out. It's at Hemlock Oak. I will put a link to it in the show notes. I was at one point a Hemlock Oak affiliate. I don't think I am anymore. If I am, it will say in the show notes. And I'm just going to plan on sharing like a regular link to this planner and not an affiliate one because I don't even think that program, I'm not sure it's active anymore. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. If you plan on using it for next year, then let me know. Oh, and one more note. Somebody might say, oh, well, I've used Hemlock Oak. I know the paper. It's really thick. It's not the same paper. The paper that's in this planner is absolutely thinner, and they disclose that on their website. This is 70 GSM. If they used paper as thick as they use for their weekly planners, this thing would be like a phone book. And it is thick, but it's not a phone book. So it is thinner paper than that, but still very high quality, nice to write on, smooth, and not a lot of ghosting. So again, if that's been what bothers you about Hobonichi, this one might serve you well. I would say my one other piece of feedback for Hemlock Oak, if they're going to make one next year, is they need a 2-volume version for people who don't want to carry around quite this much, but are still really excited about this planner. I think an Avec or 2-volume version of this planner would be a fantastic addition. All right, well, this has been a super fun episode, clearing out my inboxes together and gearing up for 2026 a little bit. You can pre-order my book. It's coming out soon, just in a few weeks from when this airs. I'm super excited. You can find out more about that at theshoebox.com/preorders. That's theshubox.com/preorders. And I am still taking registrants for Best Laid Plans at Home, planning 2026. I have 3 showings available, so that is a little bit of a bigger course, and I'd be so excited to have you join me for some structured planning fun, and the details from that are on my website as well. I'll be back next week with more planning fun as we head into December. I can't believe it. I hope any American listeners are going to have a wonderful Thanksgiving week next week, and I'll see you in the next month. Wait, one more thing. I'm back. I know this is a reward for listening to the end. I'm going to give away this planner because I'm not going to use it for next year. And I see that it's sold out right now, although it sounds like they might get a restock, but one of you can win it. So your reward for getting to the end of the episode is that you can win this planner. I am going to open this to US residents only just because if I have to ship this really, really far, it could be exorbitant for both of us. But US residents are able to enter to win this planner. And all you have to do is leave a comment on the post where I have the show notes for today. That's at theshoebox.com, theshubox.com. And just look for today's show notes and you can enter to win. I will choose a random winner in a couple of days, let's say by Wednesday. So enjoy.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.